Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into soccer at the college level. My guest today is Jim Barlow. He's the head men's soccer coach at Princeton University. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so usually I start my guests where you went to college. So where'd you go to school?
Well, I went to Princeton University, so I'm really lucky to be able to still be coaching at the school that I attended as an undergraduate. So it's been really special and fun to be back for so long and coaching at the place where I went and where those years were so great and informative for me.
Good. So let's go back to high school before we get into college. When did it all start for you in high school when you thought about going to college? Was it freshman year of high school, senior year? When did it all start for you?
Well, I know these days it seems like kids are starting to think about college right in their 9th, 10th grade, and it's becoming more and more pressure packed. Back when I was going through the process, it wasn't really till probably end of my junior year that I started thinking seriously about the different places that I might want to consider going. So the process has accelerated so much. I'm not thinking that that's a great thing, but that's the way it is these days, unfortunately. But back then, it was probably the end of my junior year, start of my senior year, where I started to think about different options and where I'd want to go.
Now, did you play soccer at college?
I did. I played 4 years at Princeton, and my coach at Princeton was Bob Bradley, who's been an incredible role model for me. Bob is now the head coach for the new Los Angeles Football Club in Major League Soccer, but after he finished coaching at Princeton, he's coached for DC United in MLS, for the Chicago Fire, for Chivas USA, and then he took a big leap and went abroad to become a pretty successful international coach. He coached the Egyptian national team. He's coached in Norway, in France, and he was first American coach to coach in the English Premier League. Wow. And now he's back in the U.S. So I was really, really lucky to be able to play for Bob and learn from him, and we've remained close friends over all these years. So still someone that I talk to a lot about the game and about coaching and about education. So you're at Princeton University. Was that your first choice to go? So I grew up nearby. I grew up in Hightstown, New Jersey. I went to Hightstown High School and had a great experience at Hightstown High School and played soccer at Hightstown, and on the side, I played on a club team and on an Olympic development team where I was able to meet Bob Bradley and get to know him as a coach and play for him before deciding on where I was going to go to college. So through Bob, I was able to learn a lot about Princeton, and being close by, I was able to come and watch the games when I was a senior in high school and get to know the guys on the team, and knowing the incredible academics at Princeton and the kind of soccer experience that I thought I was going to get at Princeton, it became my top choice pretty early on. So I knew pretty early on that was where I wanted to go, and then I just had to wait and see how things worked out in the admissions process, and fortunately they worked out. So you're at Princeton University. How's the school when you were going to school there way back? Yeah, it's changed a lot. When my roommates and friends from undergraduate years come back and see the campus now, they can't believe how much has changed, with Whitman College now and the football stadium being different. Our stadium, the soccer stadium, is now 9 years old, and that was a big improvement. But now all the new chemistry center, the new neuroscience center, the new performing arts center, the list goes on and on. So the campus has changed so much. But the thing that I always felt strongest about my experience at Princeton was just the unique group of people that you're surrounded by all the time, and that hasn't changed. There's still just so many great people from all over the world at Princeton that challenge you and push you and help bring the best out of you. Great.
So now you graduate from Princeton University, and how does one go from graduating there to becoming the head soccer coach there?
Yeah, it was an interesting route. I think when I graduated from college, I wasn't, quite done with soccer. I wanted to keep playing. There wasn't a professional league in the U.S. at the time. Some of my contemporaries tried going to Europe and playing for a few years. I decided to get into coaching, so I was able to get a teaching and coaching job at a local high school right after I graduated. So I was still nearby, and I was a history major at Princeton. I was hired as a history teacher and a head soccer coach, but a couple weeks before classes started, the economics teacher at this school left, and being the new kid on the block, I think I was the guy that was the assigned to teach. I think it was 5 sections of senior economics, and so it was a rough adjustment for me because I hadn't studied economics. I was not any kind of specialist in economics, and I learned on the fly. And so it was a tough, challenging experience to learn something on the fly and to teach students who were only 4 years younger than I was, and also have my own program and my own team. After that year wore me out a lot. I think if I had been a history teacher, it would have been a lot more fun, but teaching a subject I wasn't familiar with really wore me out. And I had a unique opportunity at the end of that year to go to American University in Washington, D.C. As the assistant coach there and to get my master's. So I I said yes to that offer and spent the next 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years in Washington, D.C., earned my master's degree in education and learned an awful lot about recruiting and college coaching and basically helped the head coach there, Bob Jenkins, with every part of the program, which prepared me really well for a lot of the challenges that I would face if I would be fortunate enough to have my own team someday. And then in 1996, Bob Bradley decided to become a professional coach, and that's when I was hired at Princeton to come back and take over. So I've been coaching the men's team at Princeton since 1996.
Wow, fantastic. Great. So now you're the head coach there. Let's get into recruiting. What type of kids does Princeton University look for in soccer?
So I it's a hard question to answer because there's so many different talents that you need to have a good team. So what we always like to say is that every student athlete that we're looking at has some foundations that we think are really important. Both foundations character-wise and foundations soccer-wise. Character-wise, I think we're looking for players who are really self-motivated, are responsible, are trustworthy, are competitive, are going to be players that put the team first and are able to really easily bridge the gap between what high school and club soccer is with college soccer, with the demands that are on your time, the pressure that's on the season being so short in the fall puts a lot of pressure on guys that not all of them are used to, because a lot of them have come from the U.S. Soccer Academy that's like a 10-month season, and now we're squeezing our season into about 3 months. So there's a lot of different challenges. But given the demands on the academics, given the Ivy League rules that limit what the coaches are allowed to do sometimes, it's really important that guys are self-motivated, that they're going to push themselves. They're going to push themselves in the off-season. They're going to push themselves in the summer and try and make sure that they're as prepared as they can be for the challenges. On the soccer side, we look for a foundation of guys who are comfortable in really fast competitive games. College soccer is a little bit unique in that some of our rules are different from the rest of the world. Our substitution rules are different and allows players to re-enter games where in international soccer that's not allowed. So our games in college soccer are at a very fast pace and don't slow down much. So we need players who are comfortable in those kinds of games, comfortable with their first touch, comfortable with their vision, their ability to stay connected with their teammates, and have a comfort level in games that are flying at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what special quality do you have that's going to help us win the league and advance to the NCAA tournament and be the best team we can possibly be? So we need all kinds of special players. We need goal scorers. We need special defenders. We need guys that can keep everything connected. We need guys who can help run the team and keep the team connected defensively. And we need guys who are good in the air. So there's tons of things we're looking at when we're out on the road recruiting, both on the field and off the field. It's a really complicated process.
So now a lot of parents talk about grades at Princeton. You have to have a 4.0 GPA kind of thing. Is that the case for all the sports or just for soccer? Do you have every single person on the team is a 4.0 GPA?
No, not every person on the team comes from a 4.0, and a 4.0 is different from one school to the next too. So there's schools that grade harder or easier than others. So most of the players that we recruit, all the players we recruit, come from very strong academic backgrounds, and they do well in challenging courses. And it's hard to say what a minimum GPA is or what the average GPA is or anything like that. But Princeton is an incredibly competitive, challenging place in every way, academically, athletically. And so we look for guys who have pushed themselves on the academic side. But more important than that, we look for guys who really, really enjoy and want the challenges that will come academically at Princeton. If you come to Princeton thinking I'm going to be a soccer player and a student on the side, it's going to be really, really hard for you. We want to be able to push our student athletes on the soccer side of things to compete at the highest possible level, but we know that the academics are going to push and challenge them on the highest possible level as well. And we want students who want both. And I think Princeton does a really nice job of enabling our student athletes to pursue both at a very high level without them getting in each other's way. Yeah. And I think that's one of the most unique things about our school is that you can play at the highest level of Division I soccer, have a chance to play professionally afterwards, but also travel abroad and before your senior year to do senior thesis research or have incredible internship opportunities and do some of those things that maybe you wouldn't be able to do at a lot of other places.
Yeah, that's great. So now here's a student coming to Princeton University. When does it all begin for them? Is it August of that freshman year, September? When do they start coming in? Give me a whole year's worth of what happens to that student.
So our preseason will start mid-August. So we'll have a 2-week preseason, which is a really short preseason compared to what soccer players are used to. So it's not a lot of time to get yourself ready for the demands of the college game. So we've got to really be efficient with our time during that stretch, and we've got to make sure that our guys know that they need to arrive in August with a certain level of fitness, with a certain level of having played some over the summer, so it's not culture shock and it's not a shock to your body and your system. We don't want to risk injuries. So we have a pretty competitive 2-week preseason. Then the games start pretty fast and furious the beginning of September. So we're permitted 17 matches. So we'll have 10 non-Ivy matches and 7 Ivy matches. And we try and schedule really good non-Ivy matches against some of the top teams in the country that are going to help make us better, help strengthen our schedule and our resume in case we're under consideration for the NCAA tournament, and prepare us for what's going to be a very demanding Ivy League season. And the last 7 weekends are Ivy League weekends. So we just play each team in the league once, and the winner of those 7 Ivy League weekends gets the automatic berth to the NCAA tournament. Our league is incredibly competitive. There's an incredible amount of parity in our league. I think since I've been coaching here, all 8 teams have won the league. And I think for our team in particular, I think it's been about 2.5 years since a game in our league was decided by more than 1 goal. So it's a very competitive, challenging league. Our league has done well in games against some of the best teams in the country, and we're looking forward to another competitive year this year. But so the season starts early September, and classes start shortly thereafter. So we have a little bit of time to be together before classes start, which is nice. And then once classes start, the typical routine will be we'll have 1 day a week off. If we play Saturday night, we'll probably take Sunday off, train Monday, and then we'll, on a lot of weeks, play either Tuesday or Wednesday, train Thursday and Friday, and then another game on Saturday. So it's a pretty busy week. Some days will be the day after a game or the day before a game where we won't do that much on the field, but we may do video, we'll do scouting, we might do a regeneration session. We have a strength and conditioning coach who helps with helping to ensure that guys are staying fit and healthy throughout the season. And it's a busy time. We cram a lot of games into September, October, and the beginning of November. And then if we're fortunate enough to win the league or get an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament, the NCAA playoffs start at the end of November. Then we have some downtime in the winter. During exam period and break periods, we don't do too much. In the winter months, we're permitted 6 hours a week with our players. So we can do 2 hours of training and 4 hours of strength and conditioning for a couple of months in the winter. And then after spring break, we start up our spring practices. And the spring season is restricted as compared to the fall. We take 2 days a week off we're not allowed to have as many days of training. But it's still a good time in the spring for guys to take the next step, whether it's the next step from being a reserve to the starting team or out of the travel squad into the travel squad, or to just, from being a starter to becoming one of the best players in the league. It's a great time for guys to work on individual things and for us to experiment a little bit with the lineup and with how we think we might want to play the following year. So that's where we are right now. We're just beginning our spring games. We're allowed 3 days of games in the spring, and we had our first one over the weekend, and then we've got the next 2 weekends.
So the spring starts usually at the end of March, beginning of April?
Yeah, right after spring break. So, I think it was middle of March was when spring break was, and then when they get back from spring break, we get started with our spring practices. And it's pretty much like 2 days a week of training, 2 days a week of strength and conditioning, and then some games on the weekend.
And then that takes you until May?
That takes us to the end of April, right? And then after May 1st, our guys are permitted to play on outside teams. So some of our guys play in under 23 leagues or men's leagues for the summer, and they're permitted to start after May 1st. So we try and be finished right in the last week of April. So come May 1, they can get started with their outside teams. The NCAA also allows college teams to travel abroad once every 4 years. And if it falls on one of those years that we're able to take a trip, we've been incredibly fortunate to have some unbelievable opportunities abroad, and we usually take that trip during spring break.
Oh.
So in 2013, we were able to have an incredible experience in Barcelona. And then last spring in 2017, we went to Lisbon, Portugal, and played some really strong international teams and had some unbelievable cultural experiences, some great tours of the city. And when we were in Portugal, we were able to see a World Cup qualifier and do some incredible things. So those are, once in a lifetime experiences and great experiences that are made possible from the generosity of some of our alumni and our Friends of Princeton soccer group.
So now a lot of parents say high school soccer compared to club soccer. Coaches at the college level look at more club than they do high school. What's your take on that?
So the landscape in youth soccer, especially on the boys' side and now the girls' side too, has changed a lot over the last few years, maybe the last 10 years, with the start of the U.S. Soccer Development Academy. So for student athletes who decide to play on teams in the Development Academy, they no longer play high school soccer. So it's a 10-month season, and the academies are governed by U.S. Soccer. They're evaluated by U.S. Soccer. Their coaches are trained by U.S. Soccer, and the goal was to have an environment for the better players in the country to push themselves at the highest possible level. It's been very controversial. There's a lot of people who, feel like student athletes should still be playing high school soccer, and I can definitely see both sides of the argument. I think there's arguments to be made on both sides. But most of the higher level games are either academy games, and there's also still players who choose to play high school but play on non-academy club teams. And those club teams still have some very good tournaments throughout the year and strong competitions throughout the year. So our recruiting is crazy because we can recruit high school. We don't get out to too many high school games, in large part because we train at the same time in the afternoon at Princeton as a lot of high school games take place. So, but we are able to go to a lot of academy games. There's academy showcases. There's the academy playoffs where all the academies in the country will gather at the same location. And then there's still non-academy tournaments all over the country, sometimes on big holiday weekends and sometimes just on in the spring, throughout the spring, where there's still a lot of good players. So soccer doesn't have like a recruiting calendar, so we are busy year-round. We're busy year-round.
So the club teams, other than the academy teams, do you ever look at some of those other club teams that are out there?
Sure. Yeah, there's players for many reasons who aren't in the development academy. Some of it's geographic reasons where there's just not an academy close enough to where they live. Some of them have made commitments to their high school coaches that they want to honor, and so they play on a non-academy club team and still play high school soccer. Some can't afford the academy and still play on non-academy club teams. So there's some very strong players that play in the non-academy teams, and certainly a lot of good players in the academy right now.
So now another big thing is financially. A lot of schools these days are very expensive, and Princeton University is up there just like everyone else. So I know I've had a lot of different coaches on from Princeton University. They say that there's no athletic scholarships or anything like that, but there is financially needed money.
Right.
I'm assuming.
Right. I like the fact that the players in our program play for us because they really want to play for us, and it's not because we're holding anything over their heads like a scholarship or the promise of more money or anything like that. So it's nice as a coach to have that kind of purity, I think, where the players in our program are there because they really want to be there. But having said that, like you stated, it's an incredibly expensive university, and like many are these days. And we're fortunate that Princeton has such strong financial aid, and it's all need-based aid, and it's it's easy for prospective students to learn about it through our website and through the estimators that they have on the website. And I love the diversity that I've seen at Princeton, and we are now, because of our tremendous financial aid, able to attract students and student athletes from all different income levels, all different geographic areas,
Sure.
and that part's been really fun to see.
So now another question that parents always have is opportunities at the school. Sometimes their son is a goalie, and you might have already 2 or 3 goalies on the team that maybe they're not seniors yet, and here's this freshman. Is there, what's your take on,
So-
do you still apply? Do you still try?
Yeah, so my advice for parents and prospective students is to ask all of those questions. Know what you're getting into. And one of the things that I've tried to do and my staff tries to do is just be as honest and straightforward as we can about what our needs are and where a certain prospect might fit into the picture. There's no harm in saying, hey, I'm a goalkeeper. How many goalkeepers do you have? Are you looking for a goalkeeper? And what if you're not looking for a goalkeeper and I wind up getting in and wanting to come? What are my options? Do you have tryouts? Do you have walk-ons? Ask all those questions, because I think the more information you have, the better you'll be to decide, is this the right fit for me? And the questions aren't limited to that. I think there's so many things that you need to think about in the process, like what size of school do I want to go to? Do I want to live on campus or off? Do I want to be in a city or not a city? How far away from home do I want to be? Does this school have the academic programs that I think I'm going to be interested in? I know a lot of students change their mind, but it's amazing how many parents and students just get so tunnel vision on the one issue. Does the coach want me? And trying to make sure you make a list of schools that seem to fit the many different things that you're looking for in the experience, I think is crucial to the process.
Well, that's a lot of questions that parents will have to ask you as they
Right.
go, but we're coming to the end of our show. And so my last question for my guests is always, what advice do you want to give to the parents and the students that want to play soccer at the college level, want to come to Princeton University? What advice do you want to give them?
So it would be similar to the issue I was just talking about in terms of asking questions, but I also think it's important for the student to take some initiative, like to take some initiative for his college search. I love it when I hear from the students directly, and I hear questions from the students directly, and I hear the student's voice as opposed to the parent's voice. I think it's great for the parents to be involved in the process for support and guidance, but these 4 years are going to be without the parents there all the time. And so a lot of coaches really want to get to know the student, hear the student's voice, hear learn about his or her character and background and goals, and it's hard to do that when the parent is taking care of all of that for the student. So that would be one piece of advice. The other thing I'd say is, like, don't hesitate to cast a pretty big net at first. There's a lot of great schools. There's a lot of great programs. There's it's easy to get just zoned in on one or two options, but take your time. Like, everyone seems to be in a race to figure it out these days, and to commit, in 10th grade or in the beginning 11th grade or even 9th grade. And my advice is to make sure you know exactly what you're getting into. Make sure you know what's being offered, if something is being offered, and don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions. And hopefully that helps ensure that you find a place where you're going to thrive and be comfortable and successful.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.